started. Welcome all, and we could ask Joshua to do the roll call.
Apperson,
Present.
Franklin,
Here.
Gassinger, right here, Gilbert, here, King, Walker,
Here.
5 here.
Okay, thank you. First order is our approval of the agenda. Any additions or changes? Anyone? Hearing none. I move approval. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Joe. Okay. And we call the roll, or do you want to, Joshua, you were mentioning?
No, we're not voting on an action item.
Okay.
Barbara said you'll be okay.
Okay.
Moving
All
forward
right.
this way.
So all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, opposed, same sign. Okay. And moving on to the minutes, these are the February 16th, 2021 minutes.
I have one correction there. I
Okay.
think on second page, about 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs up from the bottom, I think John Walker became John Taylor for just a sentence.
Hey, well, I like to, ride under the radar, so.
Oh, really?
Hey, you were pretty good at that.
Very good.
Hey, who made that mistake, Josh,
Probably.
I thought it was funny. I don't know.
But other than that, I move to approve.
Joe, where's that at?
That's actually page 3.
Oh, page 3, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. I couldn't find it. I was thinking there was something.
Bill Nicholas, John Taylor, Lisa King.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Hey, now you know who John Taylor actually is, right, Josh? Since you made a mistake, you know who John Taylor actually is?
who's that?
Man, you played, receiver for San Francisco 49ers. I mean, I got hands like him, but.
Well, I wish you got his attention, too.
John Taylor. Yeah.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve the minutes with that correction in John's last name. All in favor? Okay, opposed, same sign. Okay, we've got our minutes. Thank you, and thank you.
Who first and second with that?
Norton was the first, and Joe was the second.
Okay, thank you.
And so those are, okay. Oops. Public participation, we are fortunate that we've got several folks in the audience, and for our landlord and property owners, you guys are particularly on the agenda under the old business 2B. So unless you have other general comments, we'll obviously get to that. And Mayor Smith has requested a little bit, a few minutes. He's, go ahead, Chair.
Chair Apperson and the members of the Human Relations Commission. As you know, DeKalb has a number of boards and commissions, and as I transition out during my last few weeks here as your mayor, I'm trying to make it a point to come to each and every one of the commissions just to let you know how much I appreciate all you're doing for the city. I've had the pleasure of reappointing a number of you over my 4 years. I reappointed Larry Apperson and Lisa King and Norton. I think I reappointed you. We had Joe Gestiger. I think I reappointed you. And to see folks like you want to stay on the commission, that's very, very good. I've had the pleasure, of course, of appointing Nadine Franklin, who's with us remotely, and John Walker. Just joshing you, John. And we do have a vacant spot, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that in just a couple of minutes that I'd like to chat with you as members of the commission on. As you know, a few people have left the commission. Dave Barrow moved back, I think, to Texas. And, Ellingsworth Webb had been here for many years and was a member of this commission. And, Ellingsworth was so thoughtful, but so involved with so many things that I thought it might be nice to move him over to another commission. So he's doing a good job on our Community Enhancement Commission. This commission has been so active on issues that impact the the entirety of the city of DeKalb, whether that be housing, the issue of racial and social justice, how we treat one another. I can honestly think that the welcoming proclamation, which we did about 3 years ago, came out of this committee. And it was during that time when we had issues with immigration. And Gene Lowry, who was then our police chief, and I and our city manager crafted a welcoming proclamation to let folks in the city know how we stood. And we were not going to invite some of the folks from federal folks to come out and do raids and all that. It was the only time during my mayoral term that we had a full house and we got a standing ovation when we unanimously voted for that welcoming proclamation. I was so proud of that. Your passion is so much appreciated. As I rotate out, I do have a replacement or to fill a vacancy. I talked to Chair Apperson on this individual, a Hispanic woman who I think will add something to this commission. However, in talking with both mayoral candidates, Carolyn Morris and Cohen Barnes, both of them felt, as I did, that they should have a position, a say, if you will, into that appointment. So I would think within 2 or 3 hours we will know who my successor is. But as I told somebody earlier, I was at a ribbon cutting for the U.S. Army recruiting station over on Sycamore Road. And somebody said, "Today's your last day." I said, "You're out of luck." The actual passing of the gavel does not occur until May 10th. So you're stuck with me at least for that long. But with that, I will thank you for the 2 minutes that you've given me. And it's been an honor to be your mayor and this citizenry mayor over the last 4 years. And I can't thank you enough for what you as members of the Human Relations Commission have meant and continue to be for the city of DeKalb. Thank you, Ray.
Well, back at you, Jerry. I'm delighted to serve on this commission, and thanks for reappointing us all, or appointing us. And I want to thank you and Bill and our city staff for really doing an outstanding job during a very troublesome time. Especially, having to deal with restaurants and bars and all these sort of businesses that are, have been kind of hanging on by a thread, and trying to do as best you can by them. And suffering the loss of revenues because of those businesses being impaired as well. Very glad you were there. We were both there, and were able to help in the way that you did.
And Jerry, just, I echo the thanks and everything. I know it's been a quite involved 4 years, perhaps more so than you thought when you ran. But I appreciate the way you have raised up to the challenges, and I particularly personally appreciate your constant being in communication. That's something that I hope, whoever is the successor will continue. And I think we've made some good starts and continuing some things that I think are really going to make a difference with this city. So thank you for your part. Appreciate it. Okay. Any other public participation? I don't think so. Okay, let's move into old business. And our first item is continuing to talk about the police-community relations. I am going to have Bill Nicholas introduce our new chief of police.
We've already done some introductions.
Yeah.
Nadine, good evening to you. Can you hear us okay? And I wanted to introduce you.
Bill, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Nadine. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Good. Well, hello and greetings to you. And I just wanted to introduce you to Dave Byrd, who is our new police chief. And we talked a little bit this afternoon about the commission and its role, and particularly his more recent role in events and in the social justice movement that the mayor was talking about earlier. Dave Byrd comes to us after a very rigorous process, and members in this room, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, who's the fourth? Lisa, well, and Josh, so really 5 people. Lisa's not on tonight, is she?
No.
But who really did a terrific job. We are very pleased to have Dave. Colonel Byrd is wrapping up his many years, decades of work and progressively more responsible positions with the Illinois State Police. And in fact, it's going to be, I think, probably a tough couple of weeks here as you make that separation. And he's beloved, actually, as many supporters. But we are especially keen on, and I hope I'm speaking for everybody, because Mike and Will were on the commission and are on the review, as well as John. And correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that we particularly liked, aside from all the credentials which he had in abundance, he has a history of engaging people on difficult issues and doing it in a way that leads to mutually agreeable results. And those aren't just phrases. We've done our background, and whether it's within the department, whether it's within many communities, really, frankly, the northern half of the state and more fell under him, as or still does, for another couple of weeks. And think of all the communities there and all of the issues and the triumphs and the challenges. And he's risen to the occasion. So we're delighted with his willingness to make a commitment to us. We are looking forward to his coming on board. He has been spending time here in DeKalb a couple days a week since his appointment, and has been at a number of roll calls. He's connecting with the officers that he will be accountable for. He's also been out making acquaintances with organized groups so far in the community, and he'll be branching out into unorganized groups and being more of a presence in neighborhoods and in businesses and in every way that the community needs that kind of a fellowship and that kind of a connection. So enough by way of introduction. David, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yes, I think it's always smothered me a little bit. But so first of all, thank you for having me. And like I said, City Manager Nichols has said, I'm finishing up almost 32 years of service with the Illinois State Police and, of course, service to the state of Illinois. I did my first radio interview with Jerry Ryan the other day, and it was more of a general interview. He wanted to know a little bit more about my family and where I came from. So, I came from humble beginnings, born on the south side of Chicago, raised by in a single parent home. My mother raised me and was able to send me to college, and eventually, of course, I got on with the state police at a very young age, and I always wanted to be a police officer. He asked me, I think that was the question he asked me, like, hey, when did you know you were going to be a police officer? I was like, you won't believe this, but I was 5 years of age. So I walked around with a badge on pretty much every day when I was 5. So I kind of knew I wanted to be in law enforcement, and it was a calling for me. And I'm just happy to still be physically healthy and able to actually do the job I love. And actually, it's never been work for me because I love it too much for it to be work. So and I'm just so excited to be a part of the city of DeKalb. I've spent a lot of times at roll call trying to put names to faces and get to know who's who, and it's good to be here today to meet all of you as well. But like I said, a very rigorous interview process. I have a lot of the committee here, and they asked me some tough questions, and I gave them some candid answers. You're not going to always know the answers to everything. Anybody who knows the answers to everything, a lot of times I think it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors and everything. They know it all, because you really don't. And I would never claim to know it all. But I will tell you, I work hard, to bridge any gaps between the community and law enforcement. I am we used to say, well, he's a trooper's trooper. Well, I am also a police officer's officer. So I always want to, I know what it takes to do this job. It's extremely hard, much harder right now than it was when I started in 1989. Extremely tough job right now. And, I think we have to recognize that. We have some great officers here at the DeKalb Police Department, and they're doing an amazing job right now. Every day they're out there right now serving and protecting the city. So I'm just looking extremely forward to wearing the uniform. I did have a short occasion to put the uniform on. I must say it looked pretty good on me. So I think I shared a couple of pictures with the city manager, and so I never, to be honest with you, I've worn tan and green my whole life, and I finally put on blue. And I sent the picture to my mom and said, what do you think about the blue? She said, yeah, it looks good on you, son. So I was like, I guess I'm ready to roll now. So on May 3rd, I'll, of course, get sworn in, and then I'll be officially ready to take on any and all problems regarding the city and law enforcement. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Chief, I'm delighted to have you, and when you say nobody has the answers to every question. I just retired as a pastor a few months ago, so I'm tempted to say, no, I haven't met him, but I used to work for him.
No, yes, well, yeah, your situation is a little different, that's for sure. That's good. That's always, I always respect a man of cloth. Although I did have a big run-in with Father Flager a few years ago. Me and him didn't see eye to eye on a couple of things, but we got through it all. So,
I think that was when there was going to be an expressway.
Yeah, Ryan.
That was difficult.
It was a difficult situation. He said the state. They asked him. I think the news said, "Hey, have you been threatened by anyone?" And he said, "Yeah, I got the biggest threat from the state police this morning." I was like, "I'm pretty sure, sir, I didn't threaten you at all. I just told you the state police stance. You just didn't like it." Yeah. And that's all. But it was fine. So that's a whole other story. But I always respect the man of the cloth, sir.
Oh, no.
One thing, just to connect with what the mayor said. So you were talking about the resolution by which DeKalb proudly claimed to be a welcoming community. And as you know, there's been some more recent efforts, really NIU, City of DeKalb sponsoring some meetings and gatherings to try to encourage more conversation about what it takes to feel like you belong, and to bridge the gaps between those that feel that they have been othered or on the other side of what it feels like to be belonging. And I'm heart and soul invested in that. I think that focus of community development is just as important as anything we're going to do in attracting another data center and so forth, and how we connect with one another. It really becomes a test of what we're like as a community. And I think Dave is an important ingredient in our future and how we transact with one another. So I'm pleased to have had this moment, and thank you for your opportunity. And David's got some other things he's got to do.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. I look forward to working with you.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Yes,
you.
we want. Thank you very much. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And David,
Thank
obviously, if you need anything from us, if we can be of assistance, if you want to bounce anything off, please, you're always welcome.
Well, I'm sure that'll be happening, sir. Thank you. And that's, it's reciprocated, so if you need anything from me, let me know. I will just say I'm battle tested, so I've been through the ringer, so anything I can help you guys with as well, I'll be willing to do. Thank you.
Can you have your troopers give us, warnings for speeding on that?
Let me go make that call right now.
Yeah.
So when you get on 88, just let me know.
I'll get you.
Good seeing you guys.
Okay,
Means you're a hard man.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Okay.
You know what I was gonna say, because I almost let me paper here for John Taylor.
No, yeah, right.
Now he'll say he's John Taylor.
One word.
Okay, let's move on to our continued conversations with the landlord tenant stuff. The first thing is really just the tenant legal services is really an update. Norton and myself, we finally were able to meet with Professor Paul Kane from the Z.E. Georgie Legal Clinic, is really officially what it is, with NIU. I think it was a good meeting. Maybe, Norton, do you want to summarize anything or any of your observations? And then I'll chime in too.
Well, why don't you go ahead and I'll
Okay. All right.
add anything.
We had gone over, most of the meeting was going over that list that you all have seen of the legal assistance that the DeKalb Tenants Association had brought up, whether it be at some of their meetings I went to, or whether it was their presence here, even some emails follow-up. So that list was put together, and we gave that to Paul, and we went through that. And basically, he thought most of the assistance that was mentioned, one of which, the eviction legalities, their clinics currently already are set up to work with on. And the only ones that he thought he couldn't do would be to assist in making the association into a legal nonprofit type of thing. We need to help, they need to do with an accountant or attorney. And he also didn't feel that their legal clinics could do anything with class action suits. So that was very positive. Their legal clinics, which you know are different from the on-campus students' legal kind of service. And this we're proposing to be something that would be open to all area DeKalb residents, regardless of status with NIU. They currently have 3 separate types of clinics. One is their criminal defense one, which is they assist with misdemeanors and some felonies. A second one is their criminal justice clinic, which helps with orders of protection or family kind of law things. And a third is their health advocacy clinic, which really came about because of the COVID pandemic, that there are more and more people that needed help with Social Security disability or to develop the medical evidence needed for that type of thing. So in their view, to assist with what we were asking about is really up to their grouping of the professors that do these 3 different legal clinics. And he is going to meet with them to see the extent of interest to develop a separate, more of a tenant housing law kinds of clinic, is what this one would be, that would address the kinds of list of things that we've heard both from ourselves at meetings as well as from DeKalb tenants. So that's where it stands. He's going to report back to Norton and myself on April 16th. So by our May meeting, hopefully we'll know whether there's possibilities. So that's it. And anything else, Norton? Is there?
No, I guess I would say that what we're looking for doesn't fit very well with what they do now.
Right.
And they don't have funding or whatever they need to expand. So
Yeah.
I'm not too optimistic that will lead anywhere. So that's.
But we'll see
Yeah.
if they respond with some interest, or they may say, well, we could have these kinds of DeKalb tenant or certain things that their civil justice clinic might take up a couple of those or something like that we might find. So anyway, we'll see, and we'll report back and any updates on in our May meeting.
We may want to pursue what we're looking for with the Students' Legal Assistance Office at the university. They can't provide services for non-students, but if they provide the services we're looking for students, tangentially they would be helping non-students as well. So
Yeah.
we might see whether that's a possibility. So we'll see what, yeah.
How is that? That's surprising. I mean, I'm disappointed that you got the response that you did.
Yeah.
The clinic as it's presently set up. Who set it up that way? I mean, in the sense that, I mean, is this sort of I know it's an adjunct to the law school, but is it something the law school wanted to cover X, Y, and Z? Because I think the big draw, one of the big draws of the law school at NIU, is you get a lot of students coming here that are interested in public interest law. You know, they don't come here to study tax law so much or something like that. It's they want to be involved in social justice in some way. That's how they advertise themselves. And so it surprises me, and I don't think of an end around or anything like this, but it surprises me that an administrator would say, no, we don't do this, but when it seems clear that what your students want to.
Yeah, well, they probably just responded to the needs that were out there. The clinics basically work out of Rockford and Aurora. They don't even really work out of DeKalb. So this, if they pursued this, it would be a new area for them.
And if I understood in our conversation, the professors involved, they sort of, for this type of a clinic where they're obviously supervising law students to, help, you have to attract the legal professors with the areas of their expertise and interest. So that's some of the reason you've seen the marriage of the names of the three different things. So we'll see. Hopefully, the current on-campus legal assistance for students is fully funded by the Student Association. So if that became the only option down the road, we'd have to figure out some way that maybe they'd be willing to open it up to non-NIU students who, for a certain fee, would be able to avail themselves. We'd have to cross that one when we get there. So, okay. Then for our item B, which we all were delighted to get started a discussion with both Will and Mike last meeting. And this meeting, in prep, I had met with Mike to talk further about our last meeting and things. And Mike, you might want to tell people about one of the interesting things is he, as a property owner, has a welcome to the neighborhood kind of thing, which I think was along the lines of the things we'd love to see. Now, they have copies, and here are some copies. And here's one. And I I was very pleased to see this type of thing because we, of course, hear a lot of the horror stories, and it doesn't seem like there's, and I think this is right along with the ideas and the complaints we've heard, that this is more the type of relationship we are hoping it could be built between a tenant and the property owner and landlord. And so I was very pleased that Pitsley Realty is obviously doing this kind of thing. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you had said when we were talking that you'd like any help to embellish this or to add to it?
Well, I mean, I think Opportunity DeKalb is going to be the central leader that I'm going to try to follow what they want to do too. But we're trying to organize all the people that are invested in that neighborhood and pulling the rope at the same time, the same way, and to get results that are going to help the neighborhood, that'll help with code enforcement, that'll help with landlords, rogue landlords that don't want to do what they want to do. But I mean, they can be coerced to do the right things, I think, and that's what our goal is. So,
And
I think a lot of things, you can say whatever you want, and I have leases and things like that, but that's all in writing. It's really between the people, on how things get done, and they'll get done better if we meet in person and we talk versus having rules and laws and things like that. They're hard to follow.
So if I understood, and correct me if I'm not, that the Opportunity DeKalb and
Which Will's a part of too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you're chair of one of the.
I'm on the board of directors, but yeah, I run the security and safety area. That's my little subcommittee that I'm on. So we have it broken down in different subcommittees. Will's on the same one with me as well.
So in our conversation, he suggested that we, as the HRC, also perhaps get involved with that group. And I think I'm going to talk with Dan Kenny, and I think there's a meeting coming up, a Zoom meeting coming up Thursday. And so we'll get a lay of the land. I'll attend that, and if any of you others would like to, I'm sure there's no problem. If it's going to be a Zoom meeting,
Yeah, so
we can get that.
they would send you the link.
Yeah, right. So I think there's some good synergy there. I think there's a lot of people that share the interests that we've had as an HRC. And so I think this is a good avenue that would open up to coordinate. So that we appreciate that. Thank you. Then also, Will Heinisch, who was here at our last meeting, has also followed up, and he has suggested that maybe the best way to address and look at revisions to an ordinance like Chapter 10, the things that we've got another draft on, that perhaps forming a small little working group with himself and another one of the property owners' landlords, perhaps Mike would be interested, and then say myself as chair, and then another member of the HRC. Keep it small so we can, really get into it. There may be, from the standpoint of our property owners and landlords, there may be things with their experiences now when the last time additions were done to Chapter 10 or the handbook or what have you, that now there's a good experience of using all that, and there may be things now from your knowledge base and experience base that could get changed or added in. So I think that that's a great way to go next. We all at the HRC, as you know from the drafts of changes to Chapter 10, have mainly focused on trying to put in some things that would give the legitimate good tenant a little more authority to deal with issues, particularly where they've been in residential properties where there has not been a great response to the needs of maintenance or what have you. But now with you guys adding in, I think that will provide the rest of the focus and ideas. So we might be able to come up with something. So I was thinking that Norton, you would be our other best representative because he's a retired legal counsel with the university. So these kinds of, because I know, Will, you had some ideas on how this small group would perhaps proceed, and maybe you'd like to talk about that.
Sure,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, I mean, I think everybody's kind of got a copy of it, and I actually called Jim Mason earlier today and met with him because he was on the original committee that met probably 20 years ago with
Right.
Bessie Chronopoulos, and I think it was Don Henderson from NIU Legal back at the time. And originally formed the landlord-tenant handbook, and then really we had a major revision about 10 years ago, and that was quite a lengthy process. So even Bill Nicholas was a representative from that time at NIU, and that process on the Quality Safe Housing Task Force took over 8 to 10 months, and I've still got a whole file cabinet and paid for every videotaping of every council meeting, of every minutes, of all the public testimony, and all the drafts that we did. And I personally would have hundreds of hours when we rewrote it 10 years ago. I don't see anything that extensive because going around this time, but what I suggest is we kind of follow the same process that we had 10 years ago. And first was we met kind of smaller subcommittees and broke out into different committees, identified the issues, problems, challenges, and then like what I said here, research the legality, constitutionality, practicality, and then quantify the extent of the issue. Personally, I think we need to reduce the landlord-tenant handbook, not make it bigger. Even the last city attorney, who I thought was rogue, and our last city manager, didn't like the $50 charge that a landlord would impose or a tenant would impose for not doing the checkout. Because the city has no authority to try and collect that $50. I mean, the history in the last 20 years, how many times has that $50 charge been applied? So it could be obsolete. And that's part of the thing with in evaluating this whole thing is bringing in government as an intermediary when really it's the court system, the tenants, and the landlords. And trying to bring government in the middle doesn't mix. And so that's why, and then conceptually, if we can agree that there's something that needs to be changed, I'm all for always updating things and making sure things are current. And then lastly, write the language last. I think this group is doing an excellent job and I think this group could have the most impact in helping the tenants group in legal with NIU and form some other group, because a lot of tenants I don't think really know their rights and know common law. And it's hard to start to wordsmith and put all of that in every little circumstance and instance into an ordinance. It could go on forever. But that's why I would like to give Jim Mason a little bit of time and let him explain to you how this all became 20 years ago and kind of his experience. And he would be happy, I'm sure, to answer your questions too. So Jim, I kind of share what you told me earlier about how this formed and your experience with it.
Wow, I didn't know I was going to be asked to speak. I'm kind of shy.
And you have no experience.
Well, the interesting thing is, we had, who were the two attorneys before you that ran? What was her name?
Don Henderson.
Don Henderson and
And
Lynn Richards.
Lynn Richards.
Thank you, it's an amazing amount of time class. So what happened there about 20, 25 years ago, whatever it was, this place was booming. And and there was parties, and everything was really put, and Mike knows this too, because he was here. And everything was really kind of out of control. So they wanted to have a landlord-tenant ordinance to take care of the landlords and to take care of the students and all this kind of stuff. So Wesley Kanopoulos was the mayor, and so they picked the people from the university to be on it, which wasn't Lynn, but it was Don. He came to every meeting. And then it was a small landlord, medium landlord, and a large landlord. And then there were students. Do you remember all this when we did this? Are you aware of this? Okay.
No, I wasn't in that office.
But you remember it was in paper and stuff. You know a little bit about that stuff. So I sat there for 8 weeks and never said a word. And the reason I didn't say a word was because I wanted to find out what everybody knew. You know what I mean? Didn't say a word. And then there was a lot of case law that taking notes like you are. And so then I started to speak about this, and this, and this, and this. And Don Henderson called me up one day. He says, "It's over." I said, "What do you mean it's over?" He says, "You're right. Because the truth will set you free, the law will set you free." And he would go check out what I was saying, you know, and it all came together. Then we came up with the first draft, the first handbook. Is that still around?
Yes.
Yeah. 10%, 20%, 50%, 80%? How much are they all?
It's pretty much all intact.
Is that pretty much the same thing?
Pretty much, it's a little different.
Because I read through it today and I noticed there was some changes and stuff, but it's pretty hard to remember everything. But anyway, it's a great idea. And the last thing I'll tell you about that handbook was about a month or two after that, a reporter called me from the Tribune. And he said, "Jim Mason." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Did you help write, or did you write this handbook?" I said, "Well, I was involved with it, yes." He said, "I want to give you a compliment because it's the most innocuous document I've ever seen to solve such an interesting situation." I said, "Well, thank you." I never heard from the guy again. So that's where that was at. So then fast forward, 20 years, and we are where we are today, and we have a different clientele, different issues, and I think this is a great idea what you're doing here, and my son and I are willing to help out. The last thing is after our meeting with the landlord-tenant law, Don Henderson was the ombudsman. About a year of that, he called me up and said, "Would you do it?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." So I did it for 2 years. So the people would call the city, then the city would have them call me, and I would tell them where to go. First thing I'd say, I'm not a lawyer, but I've been around a lot of courtrooms. And it was really smooth. It was really smooth how we handled things, and we had a lot more people here at that time. But things have changed. Circumstances have changed, and so it's so important to do what you're doing here. And legally, Brad and I are willing to help out in any way we can. Anything else I can do? Okay, thank you.
I think this is a worthwhile effort, and I'm delighted that you folks are all involved in this. But just to clarify, the problem that I think that we're facing, clearly is not, it's not how do we tighten this handbook, to come down on Will Heinisch or Mike Pitsley or Jim Mason. I don't get calls at night from people, and when I was a pastor, I didn't see people coming in complaining about, the terrible places they were living in or anything like that. The obvious, the 900-pound gorilla in the room is our properties. And, I don't hear about mold or about, fires or about, drug dens in your buildings, and none of us do. And I bring that up because I don't want to miss something here, which is we can tweak this handbook and we can make it a better, more understandable document, and that's a worthwhile effort. But however many violations, 100 property are going to accrue, and you can take them to court, and you can take them to court, and you can take them to court, and they'll change their attorneys, and they'll come back around, and so forth and so on. Changing this isn't going to help so much with that. Now, I've misspoke in the past, and I said that Hunter has done similar things in Bloomington, Illinois. And I was wrong about that. They did it in Bloomington, Indiana. And they also do it in West Lafayette, and they also have properties in West Lafayette, and and so they've had some run-ins with Purdue, and and so forth. And I would like to see at least some effort made, and I don't know whose job it is, to reach out to some of the, and they own properties in Skokie and Naperville Harvey and here, there, and elsewhere around Illinois as well. But I would like to see some effort by somebody to reach out and say, what do you guys do? You know, how do you handle a bad actor like this? Because I think we're trying to, you know, solve something in our own microcosm when, you know, the kinds of things that they do are systemic. And, you know, whether it's here, whether it's in our state, or whether it's in another, whether it's in Chicago, whatever it is. And we're still going to take these guys to court again and again and again. And I'm afraid we're just going to run in circles.
Well, Jim and I kind of talked on that a little bit earlier, and like even in DeKalb, we have A through F properties. F properties are the pack rag that get condemned. Hunter, I would consider, are the D properties. You're always going to have a certain amount of D properties. That's what people can afford. That's what the properties are. You don't want to go to F properties. But as Jim pointed out to me, he goes, a D property in DeKalb might be a C or C plus property in Chicago. Everybody has different expectations in the different areas. The other thing that I found interesting talking to Jim, like even, I don't think tenants fully understand, they can terminate a lease anytime they want. If you have mold coming through the ceiling, if you have whatever, you take pictures, it's against common law. And Jim, maybe you can explain a little bit about common law, but the tenant can terminate that lease. You don't have to have it written in this, because ultimately it's the circuit court that's going to rule. Can you explain common law?
The interesting thing here is over the last 30, 40 years, people ask me, how do you win in court? I tell them health and safety. Well, coronavirus proved that, didn't it? The judges literally fold when it comes to health and safety. So when a tenant, if we want to teach tenants, and we do that, I said, oh, by the way, when people used to call me when I was the ombudsman, 2/3 were landlords. The landlords don't. People have money, they buy buildings, they don't know what they're doing. It'd be terrible to have a doctor that didn't know how to do the heart surgery, you know? And that's what we're having here. But when it comes to this situation where tenants are being abused because of non-compliance in the lease, that's what this group, and that's what we did before. We would tell people where to go and what to do, instead of having the city get involved. I always used to push it off to the lawyers that didn't mind me sending the business their way. Did I miss something? Or is there something?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the tenant has the right to terminate the lease and just walk away, as long as you said you take pictures, because if the landlord takes that tenant to court to try and collect, the tenant's got the proof, and a reasonable judge is always going to rule in that tenant's favor, you know, and I don't think a judge is going to.
Another, what he's saying is that tenants actually have more power than they know. In the city of Chicago, if you have issues that are not being taken care of in 14 days, the lease is null and void. Now, the judges don't always follow that. So what I'm saying here right now is, and I'll throw my hat in the ring again if you guys want it, is we don't really have problems over my place, and the police know it. And so education is everything. And not only that, when people come into my offices, we have big screens like this now, and everybody's on good behavior. It's another thing I would recommend any big landlord have these TV screens and have a camera up there. The guy got out of control the other day, I said, look, you look good on TV, guess what? So there's all kinds of tricks we can do with the Z generation, or whatever it is and stuff, to make things go away, because people don't like to be on camera. So, but the tenants actually have more rights, because if they know how to speak, and then if you guys want to appoint or have somebody appoint an advocate for them, that's where Lynn Richards came in. That's where Don Henderson came in. Is that still going on in Northern? Do they still have legal?
Yeah.
Who are the operatives now? Who, you know?
I haven't heard, it's ever since Lynn left, it's.
Yeah, it's quiet. Yeah, it's quiet. So
She was.
am I answering some questions, or am I getting in trouble here?
No.
Now, look, basically, look, here, this is getting being kind of boring. Look, so I'm gonna tell you the reason why your buildings are good, because you get in people who deserve to get in. Hunter, and it's not just Hunter. Okay, I know they're horrible, and like I said, and this is what I can hold my name to. because I deliver everywhere, so I know what the horrible landlords are. Hunter is one of them, but there's many. So let's kind of, spread the blame around where it goes. But the reason why his buildings are better is because he does background checks, credit checks, he does his due diligence. So this is what we're doing, and we're going over and over, and we're not getting anywhere because this is what we're doing. We're trying to make rules for horrible tenants that probably don't pay the bills, and this I know of. They complain about, people not doing, property managers not doing what they're supposed to do. So then they don't want to pay, and they have issues, and they have problems. And that's what we do. That's what we do every time here. And it seems like we're trying to fight for some of these people who really don't deserve for us to keep fighting for. And it seems like we keep trying to get on the property managers who are doing their due diligence, busting their ass, doing what they're supposed to do. So then we come back to here, and we're trying to fight for people who just aren't frankly doing what they're supposed to do. Because I'm like this, if you pay your rent, you keep your ass out of trouble, and you do what you're supposed to do, there's no problems. They're just, am I right? I mean,
Well, can I add to that?
yeah.
Slum landlords are an industry. It's as old as Christ. It goes back to the beginning of time. And there's people tell you that the people that own 100 properties are the banks. You want to tell them who owns that place?
Yeah.
Do you want to explain? Could you explain that to them?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is the banks, and if you look at the stockholders, and they have to declare what you own stock in the bank, your holdings, and if you go look, people that own 100 properties are the banks, and not to go down the rabbit hole, but once you get to that size and that level, they play the games, and you can overpay for something, for a tax write-off, play a shell corporation, then you can take that shell corporation, let it go bankrupt, and get another write-off and recreate another corporation and buy that corporation out. It's a whole different level than we're used to here in New York.
So you see, these people are not entrepreneurs. They're sharks.
Yeah.
And Will and I have talked about this. And what it is the banks that own, and I've seen the list, it's big, is that they deal in cash. They're dealing in cash. 100 properties pay 20-30% more than it was worth. So the banks put up the money. Banks and all their limited partners get the depreciation on this. That's what they do. So you're up against the combine here. How am I doing?
But I disagree with you, John, in this sense. I mean, I disagree with you quite a bit on this. I'm not so much concerned about, the gangbanger or whoever it is that lives in such and such an apartment and so forth and so on. But I am concerned about the 6-year-old who lives across the hall. And I am concerned about the 8-year-old who lives in the same building. And I am concerned about, the prevalence of drugs and violence and things like that, because there are people that, don't have a whole lot of money, don't have a whole lot of opportunity, and don't have a whole lot of know-how, and they move out from wherever it is, and they look around and look pretty nice and so forth and so on. And then all of a sudden, who in the hell are they living next door to? And that's where my concern is.
Okay, so this one I would come back with. Then they have to do the credit checks and do due diligence. Then gangbanger from West Side Chicago or from Sycamore is living right next to them.
Right.
So if you eliminate that problem, then the people who honestly can't afford it, need those type of situations, they have a good place to live, because guess what? We don't let the trash in. And it's just all goes hand in hand. Like we have to honestly just look. I understand. Like, I come from that, so I can speak on it real well. But guess what I seen? I saw my mom and grandma do what they're supposed to do, and they speak up when somebody across the hallway is, smoking weed or got 4 keys of cocaine next door. They speak up, and if people don't want to speak up and help themselves, you can do all your stuff. You can do all your stuff. You can do all your stuff. Chief Byrd can come here with a Superman cape and do all his stuff. But it's not ever going to change unless the people we're fighting for start to step up and start speaking out and doing what they're supposed to do. Because, like, for instance, I bugged Bill about the other day. There was somebody on a property, water kept leaking, or it just made the carpet all soggy, right? So I said, hey, call Bill. Bill told me what to do. I tell this guy to do it. He didn't even do it. I go, hey, I talked to the city manager. He said he sent some people over there. I did this twice. I was like, hey, did you? Nah, it's okay now. So what I'm saying is, look, the reason it gets depressing to me is because we keep going into circles about things that, you know, we honestly really can't change, because we cannot make 100 property towns or whoever wants to be slumlords that week or that month or that year. We can't make them run their business the way that these guys run theirs. We can't. But what we can do is, what I've always thought we can do is, well, guess what? We got to put the police presence there, because that's the only way. Because look, that's what people want. They want good living and to be protected, right? Right? You want great living and you want to feel protected. Am I right? And that's just what it comes down to. And better to say, as a black man, for me to say that, that's what it is. Like, because we cannot, as a HRC or mayor, alderman, whatever, like, for instance, Carolyn Moore wants to run for mayor, but guess what? She doesn't know the first thing she's talking about, because guess why? Because she doesn't go to these buildings and she doesn't see what I see. But everybody speaks about what they think they see, when in actuality they have no idea what they're talking about, because look, we're here. We've been talking about Chapter 10 going on 2 months, and we ain't have the first thing really done with it. Because guess what? We're fighting for people who don't want to fight for themselves. And if they don't want, if they can't fight for themselves, then what can we do? I mean, I know what you're saying, because
I don't think they know how to fight for themselves.
No,
but they ask, but when they ask and we tell them and they still don't. You see what I'm saying? Like everybody can pull. I tell it, like, 100 property, have 8 million people on the thing, and I'll say to them, hey, how's Tiffany treating you guys? How's she treating y'all? Let me know, because I'll make it happen. How's she doing it? Oh, she do this, do that. Okay, call me right here. I know Bill over, the city manager. We'll have somebody come in here and we'll rectify any situations you have. Phone don't ring. Only people calling me is my daughter and my wife bugging me when I'm coming home.
John? Wow. First of all, under the new bill that was, Mr. Nicholas will back me up here, the police have less power than they've ever had before. Okay, now that's the big thing. Are you aware of the Pritzker's ability to sign?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the real problem is that in that bill, it says that all the police can do is give a ticket. So if somebody's trespassing your property or peeing on the rug or doing all these things, that's why I'm so happy that Dave came here, because he's going to help out in many ways that we don't know. But the thing I want to say here is, when I say this, is that druggies and crooks and gangbangers have rights. You know what I mean? And so what they're doing is, they're pros, they're pushing the envelope on everything they do, and that's why this committee's here now, but it wasn't here 10 or 20 years ago, is because it's got us all chasing our tail. So, and you can't, and 100 Properties is here for the cash. They're professional slum landlords.
For sure.
So, and the only way that you can hurt them is to condemn the property.
That's it. That's it.
Mr. Nicholas?
And just throw out a couple things. First of all, knowledge is power. This is a good conversation. We've got talent in this room. Everybody here has experience. Joe, you've got lots of experience talking to families who have maybe been in some.
Oh, yeah, I've been in 100 properties, and I moved couches in.
And everyone here is either, as by way of what they've done as a living or what they've done as human beings, has connected with, and John was speaking to this right on the point, because John is in these buildings every day, and he knows where it's safe to drop a package and where it's not. One thing that I think we have two major challenges. Let me just I'll call it the Hunter challenge over here just for a minute. And then what you were saying, and you were saying as well, which is, and I guess a number of people were saying here, and that is a lot of both managers and tenants just don't know what their responsibilities and rights are. And I like the idea of a handbook, but as you look through this, you kind of go cross-eyed after about the 5th page. I mean, if you have the time, if you're laying on a beach for 3 hours, you could probably read through this and get to the end. They're good questions and so forth, but nobody reads information like this anymore. This is what I grew up with, right? And I was an historian. I read books like this. I don't want to read that stuff anymore, and a lot of people anymore, they want to see some color, they want to see 5 or 6 pages, and you hit them with the most important stuff. And that's not the dumbing down, it's just frankly, people don't have time, they're in a hurry to get to somewhere else and to think and do something. So I think this needs some work. And I think there are 20 questions rather than, it looks like there's 50 questions in here that are pretty essential. And what you were talking about, common law, I think that should be one of the first 5. Are you aware that if there are, you said health and safety, so let's focus on that. That's one way. So there is value, I think, in helping people inform themselves about what their options are. Is that?
Hey, but that's what I agree.
No, that's, may I add to that? But see, I totally agree with that. And I also think something you said earlier is an essential component as well, which is that people who feel othered, or people who feel left out, people who feel outside, aren't going to have any recourse to this. You know, when my parents grew up in Brooklyn, and if you wanted to, you know, and if there was a pothole or there was a problem, you know, in the neighborhood and so forth, you didn't call the city of New York, you went down to the corner, you talked to Mr. So-and-so, and that problem got taken care of.
That's right.
You know, I mean, there were people...
It was an alternate system.
There was an alternate system, but people had connections, where they felt they had connections. They know who to call, they know who to talk to, they know how to, you know, they know how to get things done. So when you take somebody out of the west side or the south side or someplace and so forth, and put them in the middle of an apartment complex 60 miles from where they know anybody, and you say, well, just call the city. To me, that's like calling the moon. You know,
who is the city and who you call?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I hear all that, but look, back to what I was saying, like, you know, people don't at least like help themselves or attempt to help themselves. What we're doing here is not going to get anywhere, that's all I'm saying. That's just the meat and potatoes to it, you know? I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, I don't know what else I can get over. My vocabulary is not that long where I can say different words. Like, you have to at least help yourself, is what I'm saying.
What John is saying, let me hear, what John is saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Basically.
That's
Here's a thought, and you're all invited. On October, what gets
24th.
24th. Mike will be cooking. What are you cooking?
I don't
I don't know. I need to talk to you about that. So on the 24th, in the city-owned property, which has been affectionately called the burnout area, on Blackhawk, between Hillcrest and Fanaticos, it's a Saturday. It's 12 to 6, so it's family oriented. Y'all come, because there's going to be bouncy houses and vendors and so forth, but it's to attract people to the neighborhood. But they're not going to be handed this at the table as you walk in. Now, please read this. It's exactly what John was saying. So, and what you were saying, how do you connect to people? First of all, they see that we're human. And by the way, I work for the city, and Bill. I don't know what you do. Even people who've lived in this town for 50 years don't know what a city manager does, so I wouldn't bore them with that, right? But if you say, you know, what's going on with you? Well, the biggest thing for me is I don't know how I can stay in my apartment and whatever. So here's 3 things you ought to know. And maybe it's just my conversation with them.
Hey, okay, so explain this to me, Bill, or whoever would know. Okay, so Gideon Courts, Christine Cruz.
Yes.
Now, that's low income, right?
It is.
Now, I don't know if they're funded by something or anybody, and I don't know how that works.
Yes.
However, for the families that you're talking about, I would think that that's probably the route that they should go because, like you said, she has cameras everywhere, looks like a hotel in there, and she does it the right way. So for those good families who, you know, just need another chance, hey, I understand that. I was one of those, our family was one of those, so I understand that. But when we're dealing with property management owners like Hunter, it's just never going to work out the right way. And listen, I know where your heart's coming from and I understand what you're saying. I do, I really do. But you know, I lived it and I've seen it. And like I said, I've been driving the UPS truck for almost 23 years. You know, and even all Hunter's buildings, they were even horrible before Hunter and the mall, or whoever, the banks, whoever. So it's the same crime, you know, it's just another time, You know, I started driving to 2099 almost, 99. You know, North Antigonish was horrible, Kimberly, they sold the most dope, crack. Hell, I was even scared to go into some of those buildings. And Westbridge was horrible. Amber Manor was drug infested. So what I'm saying is, you know, all these areas that we keep talking about, they all stay the same. They just flip over and just a new breed comes in. And it's not only black people. Let's keep that real right now. It's white and black people, and there's minorities as well, and the majority. However, but all I'm saying is it just flips it. No matter, everyone's like, hey, 100, you know, get rid of the building. You know what we need? We need maybe you divide all up and put houses up there and give families, you know, a shot.
Hey, John, here's a little thing. So even though the city's not a major player in the sense of information about what you can do, we do get calls, and every day one or two come in about what you were describing. How come there's water in the hallway here? And Hunter, by the way, had chronic sprinkler head issues. That's it. So people don't see, there's no sink overflowing, but what's this water? You know. So we're in there anyway, so we have to explain. And I'm thinking back to what you started with. We ought to find a way in a very, very user-friendly fashion, and it may not be this, to just, here are just some basic stuff, and here are some phone numbers. So if you really can't figure it out, just call this number. You know, this is your easy button right here. I don't know what that is, but all I'm saying, that's probably worth a little discussion. But I just wanted, before I leave, I wanted to say something about the heavyweight bout, which is Hunter. Okay, and you started, Joe, with I think it's very apt. What are we doing to compare notes with those other communities that have this? The lawyers have done that, so our lawyers have talked, but I thought I should at least throw that out. So there has been a dialogue there, and it's informed what we've been doing for about 6 months now.
Okay.
And how we ended up discovering assets, and what you were describing, we know who the banks are, who the people are. And now we're at that point in our court process that not only have those been revealed and entered into the discussion with the judge, but we are looking to freeze assets to pay for problems that we are identifying every day, literally every day. Somebody from the fire department or the city code goes to one of the 100 properties. And we don't have that staff. We have 3 people. And we've got Facebook happening. So there's one down there all day long. And the other is Dawn, who's the head. And then there's a property maintenance place. So you can imagine we're outgunned. It's, we're behind a little wall and we're surrounded by the enemy, so to speak. So, but we're making some headway. Now, you will soon see your tax bill. Somebody in Chicago is going to get the tax bill, which also has a special assessment of $100,000, just for that one block, 808 Ridge, 832 Ridge,
835
834. Thank you.
835 that's
Thank
Whose idea was that?
We worked on it.
Like that is cool. You know what he's talking about, right?
Yeah.
This is cool.
Now that can be used only for that block, but, so, although it doesn't seem like much, we are, and we have this criminal housing management thing going on now, and there's only one candidate for that. So, little things, eventually, it's the fingers are beginning to, we sure don't have it at their throat, they're not feeling a thing, but I mean, it's happening. And there's one other thing. Ultimately, money talks, right? So these properties that they paid 20, you said it, 20%.
Well, they paid more than they were worth.
The market value, yeah.
They were dumb
asking
price
price.
bought. Yeah.
So there's one other scheme, which is cost shifting, I guess you would say. The city will come into some more COVID money if this $1.9 trillion funnels and some of it, a little bit of it in our direction. And certainly we have a lot of things that we can reimburse ourselves for, the overtime, the aid to businesses, and all this stuff that was identified in the bill is legitimate. And we'll give lots of records for that. But as we're getting that back, instead of being in a deficit by, say, $2 million, or $3 million, or $4 million, or whatever the heck it is, as that money comes our way, it's basically paying us to do some other things, right? I can afford to take money out of this pocket because I'm getting reimbursed for what happened over here, the loss over here. And one of the things I'd very much like to do is to buy the commercial strip.
What? What?
Buy the commercial strip, get them out of there on Wilkins.
Oh, yeah.
Where the old jungle used to be.
Yeah, because we have ownership. We're the proud owners where the campus cinema was, and the proud owners, there's another open area there. And I'm not saying the city has any ambition to put a transit center there or any other thing, but then the community's got to decide, what are we going to do with this?
Yeah, but here's the
Surely
problem.
we can do something better than what's there.
Yeah, but here's the problem though, like who gets to decide like what should go there? The people with the money, because this is one thing I'm kind of getting tired with, just by being in after as long as I have, like, for minorities and mainly black people, black and brown people over in that area, there's just nothing for them to do, like absolutely nothing. So it's like, well, what we gonna put there? Another restaurant? There ain't nobody from the other side of town gonna go there, you know? That's just.
So I think we have to figure that out,
Yeah.
and I think your voice is going to be very important in that.
Oh, believe me, it's gonna be out there, but you know, it has to be a collective group though. It can't just be what John Walker thinks. I need, we need some good people involved in that process.
I think here's a lot of good people right here. I appreciate everybody spending this evening here and talking about this, because this is what I live with every day.
But it's not gonna get, I just needed to change because, my son's about to move in one of Mike's, one of Mike's buildings. And, I'm kind of nervous, football player in the back there, and I hear some things. So, my heart's in it because, I have kids, and, there's always some of the people around here who, it's just about money. And that's where, and that's where we go left. Because, yeah, we all can make a little bit of money, it's a college town. Hell, I got a couple townhouses, but at the end of the day, yes, it has to be about money, but it has to be a little bit more about love in the area. You know what I'm saying? Because then when you show a little bit of love in the area, the people in the area will start taking a lot of pride in their area. You see what I'm saying? So I just think that, we got to figure it out. Yeah, we got to figure it out.
I think we can figure this out.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And John, I appreciate your comments about, you tell somebody that's having a problem, there's this resource, you need to call that, and then they don't do that or whatever, But the reason I think the HRC got involved in all this is because the DeKalb Tenant Association brought forth, through pictures and lots of discussion, the problems that were going on. And they asked for some help, they asked for some more tenant-related powers in Chapter 10. And we have been responding to them. Now, we want to bring it forward with the help of our DARA or whatever small group that Will was suggesting to see if anything from, let's simplify the handbook, let's, whatever. I don't think because we have experienced a wide range of people in DeKalb, some that use resources very well and very effectively, and then there are a lot of folks that don't, and there are a lot of tenants that are about that folks that don't seem to feel confident to use what already exists.
Okay, where are those folks at, really? Because, you know what, I haven't heard them really, you know what I mean?
Well, we have.
Okay.
We've heard the DeKalb tenants come here and express their concerns.
Well, the only people I heard was one talking about him says that, Mesa doesn't rent to black people, that's the only tenant I've heard that come to any of these meetings, when I clearly delivered to a lot of minorities that he has in this building. So when people like that start coming up here and doing things like that, my mind just gets shut off, things like that. So what I'm saying is, look, this is what we need to do. We need to just find out a median for property managers and the tenants who honestly need the help. And that's what it has to be.
John, could I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
They got a big auditorium over there in northern Colorado. Try to do it, invite everybody, and have a jam session, get people on the stage that know what they're talking about. And then give a microphone to all these tenants, right? Because the knowledge is never in the right place at the right time. But if you get everybody in the room and tell them, write down a question, and you can read it, so somebody walks around with a microphone, you wouldn't believe what they would do. And then you have a hotline for people to call with questions. That's what I used to do. Hotline. But the thing is a lot of the tenants are so meek, maybe not that sophisticated, they think that they don't count. Well, when you have something like that, you have to embolden them to come to the meeting, give them a chance, put a microphone in somebody's hand, and don't forget, they could be on TV in the dorm. Get them out and talk to them, because there's not working onesie twosies, right? It's not go over. I agree with you. I just thought that.
No, I think that's a great idea.
And I think he's onto something, because it goes along what Bill said, it's kind of what I said, suggested issues to consider at the bottom. And instead of doing the handbook that nobody reads, 99% of the tenants and landlords don't read it. That this commission, we think outside the box, we do something new, like what Jim's saying, question and answer session, an ombudsman, where people can submit questions, and maybe this commission, you open it up, that an email that, you know what, and then you call Mr. Mason. This tenant says that the water's run through, instead of just the city thing, you have a group of professionals that would be willing to answer questions, that they could send them an email, and now, hey, you have tenants, you have an issue, email. And Dara would be happy to participate, because you know what? We want good tenants. They're our customers, and we want all good customers and all good and safe. So we want to help those that need help as well. So I think we need to think outside the box, and maybe out of this meeting, instead of just trying to revise this ordinance that nobody reads anyway.
I agree with that.
Got another one for you.
Last meeting, we said, Will and I said, the most important thing is education. And this boils it down again to this week, is we got to educate. We got to...
And provide resources.
Right. Yeah.
Educated resources, and maybe frame our subcommittee around that, and working on resources, education, hotlines, ombudsman, Snapchat. I'm not a Snapchatter, but if whatever the millennial new thing is, all right, because they don't read this, but they might get a Snapchat, they might get whatever. And unfortunately, it's going to take a commission like this, because the tenants organization is not stable enough. It's too transient.
Got another one for you here. This is a big deal. I just thought of this. You invite everybody to come, and you have a big band after the jam session in the auditorium. That's what kids like. Kids like to come out and have a good time. If they're of age, they can have a cocktail. If they're not, they can get some. But if that building over there will handle a lot of people. But we've got to get into the way kids are today, not the way we were 30, 40 years ago. We read this, but they don't want to read it. But they want to have fun, but to get on, and maybe some of them will get online too. They'll ask us a stupid question. Can't let it bother you.
Right.
Can't. So it's an idea.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So if you guys want to have a table at this event on October 24th, they're going to have tables available,
You say October.
I mean, April 24th.
Oh, April 24th.
I was confused
They
too.
did say that.
So it's April 24th. It's going to be where not where the theater, but the parking lot, probably just where the theater was. And it's put on by tenants in the neighborhood. So they're the ones that have started this initiative, and they're asking for funding, they're asking for support, they're asking, for us to be involved.
Hey, is this with Arnell Brown?
Yeah, this is Arnell's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Arnell's a dude, man.
This is really good. Then.
Yeah, it's Arnell's. Yeah.
Arnell's a good guy, yeah, so if he's behind it, then I know it'll do something real good for the community, for sure. Most definitely.
You'll want to meet Arnell. He might be the savior for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay. He's the founder of the Sun Donald Foundation.
Yeah.
Well, this discussion is helpful because if we're gonna have a small group to try and talk further with these things,
Right.
trying to do something, this is, this discussion is what we wanted to do, is to get a full picture from people from the community. Do you, will wanna, contact me whenever you want to start meeting, or?
Sure, and maybe still the subcommittee's a good idea, and we bounce some ideas amongst us, and, I kind of see this taking a little bit different direction, that's okay, because I think we need to go whatever direction we think will
Because the other
most
direction
benefit.
wasn't working.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
and with this discussion, how, this sounds like it fits in with the opportunity thing, So if four of us meet to start more in detail talking about this stuff, then do we try to become a part of the opportunity group
That's why
too?
you should come Thursday.
Okay, so I should.
Yeah, we want everyone involved.
Okay. So this is great. This
Yeah.
helps with me with coordination and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, well, I'll call Dan and make sure I can get the link. Okay, great. Good. Good discussion. Good. Thanks.
You want to keep the blood boiling a little bit, to see.
Oh.
Just a little bit, I like that.
I don't know, we're gonna have to train you better than that.
I
You get my blood boil.
I gotta do better than that.
You gotta do that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's try and wrap up here. And there was, at our last meeting, as there's been some discussion with other commissions, there's been requests that the commissions have gotten from community members to have these meetings broadcast, so to speak, with some kind of remote viewing access. And we left it that the city was gonna look into, well, how much does a multiple Zoom license cost, and all that kind of stuff. And Joshua, I'm sorry. I'm thinking Blumenthal.
He is much more cheerful than I am. I can't believe that.
But what did you discover? I know you talked with some folks.
So we'll go back and forth, and the short summary and conclusion of it is that as long as there's no schedule conflict, which is extremely rare, we're going to be on Zoom.
Okay.
And I think that's the correct decision because there's a familiarity there. There's a brand there that everyone recognizes.
Right. Now, sooner or later, they'll come up with some reason that there's,
Sure.
a conflict. It may be that one of the commissions has a special meeting apart from their normal calendar of meetings. Do we have an option there where we've got to try to have it open to the public with two different groupings?
Sure. I would suspect before that date happens and close to it, we can buy the extra license. It's instantaneous when we can do that. Or you can schedule a meeting a day after, as long as we change the calendar, if we foresee that issue coming up.
Okay. So it wasn't like the Jeremy with tech and all that, they weren't suggesting, go with Microsoft meetings or for those days where we can't use Zoom or something like that?
They suggested that, but my opinion and Bill's opinion is we're so far along in society of, hey, I'm gonna have a Zoom meeting, even though it's a Skype one or a Teams one.
right.
I think with enough practice, you can adapt to either platform, but I think everyone does like the Zoom and
Right, yeah.
appreciates it, and uses it
Yeah.
synonymously
Okay.
as with others, so.
Okay,
Tissue, Kleenex, tomato, it's
Yeah,
just all
yeah.
Zoom.
okay.
Hey, I want a Betamax once a month.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to utilize Zoom. If we come up to a point where we've got, particularly if it's the zoning and planning
Yes.
commission and ourselves, that are essentially the same time, same night, we might first try to see if one of the other groups can reschedule,
Yeah.
if it's far enough in advance.
Right.
And if not, you then mentioned something about buy an extra license. Is that a Zoom option? I'm not familiar with their different options.
I'm not certain either, but I think it's like $15 per license. You guys run businesses, I don't know if you have different organizational ones. This is Jeremy's realm as opposed to mine specifically, but it's not an extreme cost given our budget, and it shouldn't be. So if it comes to that point,
Okay,
we'll explore.
okay, good, good. Well, I tell the staff I appreciate everybody talking about that. And,
Yeah.
you know, because as you know, I'm sure you, of course, never get somebody that's upset talking to you,
Right.
but
Yeah.
But I've gotten over the last 3 months or 4 months, you know, a number of people have emailed me.
Sure.
Upset that the meeting wasn't broadcast or it wasn't, you know, whatever.
Right.
So, anyway,
Yeah.
thank you.
Very
Appreciate
welcome.
that a lot with that update. Okay, anything else for the good of the order? We don't have any new business. And our next meeting is May 4th. So, nothing else. I'll move we adjourn. Norton has moved to adjourn. Is there a second? Second from John. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Nadine.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.